Hello, I'm Cory Olsen. I'm from University of Oregon. I'm actually in interior architecture department. And this project is done in collaboration with another UO interior architecture professor, Linda Zimmer. We are a change of pace. I can guarantee you that I'm going to have the least amount of text in anything you've seen today. So this is a ARS project, so funded through Tallwood and the USDA. So we're very thankful for them for this opportunity. So a little bit about the project. We, again, are not mass timber users. So we have this speculation that in mass timber fabrication and production, you start with a massive panel. That panel then gets cut for particular jobs. So you might have doors, windows, panel sizing, and we're curious about what happens with those offcuts. So in talking with local fabricators, local producers, we know that per job, there's about 10 to 15% of drop in their panels when they're optimizing their layouts. So we had this question of what happens with those. In talking with those producers, they don't really know what to do that material right now. So some of them are just kind of stashing things in the yard. Some of them are chipping it up, turning it into cogen. We see that as a downcycling of this great material. So what we're doing is we're proposing different furniture prototypes that can take advantage of these smaller scale offcuts. So the Squall Stool I brought in, this is a built prototype that we did at TDI. So we actually used the KUKA robotic arm and did a parametric design. So the idea behind this is every single one that we make, we could actually make individually unique. So that introduces an idea of like serial difference. This kind of illustrates a few renderings of how each stool could be part of a family, but each one is also individually different. So we used the KUKA, again, running a parametric design. So we milled this in about a day at TDI. It took a little bit of sanding afterwards, but you actually get a pretty decent result straight off of the machine as long as your step over is good. So this piece was kind of like a first testing ground for us to see if this would work and see if we could actually kind of work with this material. It was a great learning experience, kind of getting used to kind of the quality of what CLT is. Once we actually milled away the surfaces, we got to see a lot of things that we could never anticipate. So the colorations of the wood, you'll get certain boards that still have the pith intact. So you actually see the center, which as a woodworker, that pith would be something that you don't desperately avoid in furniture. But in this application, it actually works great. So it's a fun little piece. It's actually on casters, so you can pass it back and forth to each other. So I'm over here and Linda's over there. We're just pushing it across. And this piece has actually already gone to New York City as part of Want to Design New York City's Launchpad feature. And it's also been featured in the USGBC in their Green Products Showcase. So we're getting a little bit of traction, which is cool. This one is particularly tricky because it relies on a robotic arm to fabricate. So in our other prototype ideas, what we're actually thinking is in touring factories, getting to understand their tooling, we're starting to optimize our design so that these could actually be made in the factory while the panel is in the CNC, right? So the robot, of course, not every factory is going to have access to that, but everyone is going to have access to some sort of 3-axis CNC. So a few of our other designs, I'll go fast because I've only got a few minutes. The Tory bench, we actually partnered up with DR Johnson down in Riddle. So they made a prototype for us. This is kind of inspired by Japanese form and Japanese joinery. So it's a very simple piece. It requires a little bit of routing and a couple circular saw cuts. But after that, like you're kind of off to the races. So again, kind of a nod to the idea of Japanese joinery, taking advantage of the actual ply of the CLT. So you're paying attention to which board is oriented in its long grain and which one is oriented in the cross grain. And then they actually helped us produce a few of these, again, just as a testing ground. So what we're really looking for are people to partner up with to hopefully put more of these prototypes out in the world. I'm going to flip through. We've been working on this for a couple of years now and just churning out design after design after design. So the Mesa, the idea here is kind of the idea of if you ever made scale models as a kid, we could actually make this so that this was all tabbed together shipped on the truck with the job going to the construction site. And then the carpenters on site could then cut out the tabs, assemble this, put it together, and then these could actually be modular. So this is kind of a great piece for something like a large space like this or a lobby. And the idea behind these is we've formulated these geometries so that you can actually start to nest them together. And the way that you nest them together can orient it in different sorts of patterns, right? So if you think of these like in a public space, you can sit down, work on your computer a little bit, put your drink down on the lower little level, hang out with your backpack, right? And then move on throughout your day. So these all kind of build off of 90s, 180s, and 120s, I think. The capsule is another idea that started with this idea of like a very funny tete-a-tete chair, where you're kind of like facing each other in this weird sort of confessional. And then we kind of ran with this idea of the overall pill shape. And again, we're kind of turning these into a series of design outputs that share kind of a formal language. So this is something that we would, again, love to kind of produce and fabricate. We're actually partnering still with TDI to get all of y'all's scraps from other research projects and turn those into furniture prototypes and test them out. So these are kind of more applicable to like a retail setting. So starting to think of furniture that could go into either pop-ups or other applications. This one I couldn't resist the perfect palindromic name. So the LC2 is a Le Corbusier design. And if we just get some panels, I've already got the frames, I can make these in a day, right? The suitcase is one we're actually currently developing. And the idea here is it only takes a minimal amount of material, and that material can be any length. So we're kind of approaching these prototypes so that whatever the scrap is, we can utilize that scrap to a maximum. So you might have a 6-foot offcut in one job, and you might have a 10-foot offcut in another job. We're kind of making these modular so that if you have a lot, you can make a longer bench. If you have a little, you can make a shorter stool, right? We'll incorporate some wheels and casters again so that we're not fighting the weight of the material. And then this kind of works like your little suitcase following you through the airport, right? And then the facet is kind of another fun one that's just utilizing a 15-degree miter. So again, something that a panel saw can do pretty easily. And then this would all get either dominoed or doweled together. And it gives you just kind of a fun, interesting geometry with all of those pieces kind of flattened out. One thing we're starting to learn is small things on big machines get a little tricky. So we're kind of approaching it with this hopeful kind of notion of, can these things be tabbed together, held in place so they're not like falling through the cut, and then we can salvage all of that afterwards. So again, short and sweet, mostly pictures, not much text. So if anyone wants to get in touch, you can definitely reach out to me. And we're going to keep making these things. So the more that we get you all involved, the more exciting it's going to be. So thank you very much.